So our podcast producer, the wonderful Joe, has actually given us some notes for today's podcast. Apparently, we're sharing my personal favourite topic. We're going to talk about training in project management and EV, why it matters, what the gaps are, and how we approach it differently with AzTech International University. So, question for you to kick this off. What do you hear about the training gap?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I see three common observed industry issues that have really emerged. The first one being people related, the second one being lack of performance-driven compliance, and the third one being language hygiene. So first, people. I have just observed folks that are literally just plucked from wherever they were before and thrown into their roles with little to no onboarding. So they're still very green, even if they're just green to their role, they're green and they come in from either a smaller program or a different industry or a different agency altogether, and they haven't been made aware of the nuances of the program that they're supporting currently. The other thing is workforce turnover. This is accelerating, and we've heard it now for several years. Um, Experienced staff is retiring and it's just simply leaving gaps behind. So I've seen entire program teams built from, great engineers and analysts who just simply aren't trained in the why behind the numbers. So the story that the data is telling us. And sometimes they're just merely struggling to generate the EV data based on this. Or conversely, they're producing EV data without understanding what it's telling them at all. So number two, lack of performance-driven compliance. So I'm talking true performance measurement versus compliance. So too often, EVM training is treated really like a box checking exercise in the compliance realm instead of a capability builder. There's also the nuance of shifting requirements. So new data reporting requirements are rolling out, and albeit they're not rolling out at a lightning quick speed, but they're rolling out enough, and there are enough different practices out there like Agile, IPM DAR, and the impacts to new JSON requirements and data requirements. Then you throw AI into the mix. It throws a lot of curveballs into the requirements, and I think that manifests in inconsistency, inconsistent focus, and examples for practical application, honestly. And then, of course, on top of all of that, you have the overarching issue of compliance and audit pressure just simply increasing. There's more scrutiny that's going into the money that we spend, and so there's more visibility into these programs, and it's resulting in that increased pressure. Then lastly, third, language hygiene. People just aren't speaking the same language, the same project controls language. It results in schedule integration issues, mismatched assumptions, and misaligned metrics. Different agencies look at the same metrics sometimes in different ways. So these are all common problems. We watch the same pattern emerge, with a lot of the commonality in those three areas in particular within both DOE and DoD programs. And, the knowledge in the meantime is also walking out the door with the senior staff, and new hires are expected to just figure it out. And that altogether just is manifesting in a huge risk multiplier. So, I know you've been working on our AIU programs. What have you heard?
Yeah, same patterns. It's interesting that you use that word. They really are. The same things just keep showing up. The whole language hygiene thing obviously resonates with me. We talk about that a lot. Um, Having a team have that shared language and also shared understanding around the why is key, and we do see that is lacking often across teams. And also I think the other thing that we see is a real willingness and desire to actually master the fundamentals, because as you said, some people have just been sort of like plopped into a program, been brought over from somewhere else, and maybe they don't have the experience level that actually that role needs at that time. So for us to be able to provide that core foundation, I think is really critical.
Okay, so back to our agenda. I have a few notes here that I wanted to touch on while we have you, and one of them is that the training isn't lecture based or just box checking e-learning, and that the other one, kind of the counterpoint to that or the supplemental point to that is it should be hands-on, interactive, gamified learning for better retention.
Yeah, I mean, we have returned to live training and development. We've heard over and over that e-learning just doesn't have the same traction. I mean, we have different challenges with e-learning. So obviously there's the whole compliance thing. Just because you have it on
Mhm.
offer, it's sat in a library somewhere, doesn't mean people are actually tapping into it. Even if you provide webinars, it doesn't mean people aren't multitasking. And also there's no one to actually ask questions of once you've maybe taken a module. So yeah, again and again, we've had clients coming to us saying, look, we have traditionally had, this stored e-learning program, but we're not seeing the team improve. So yeah, so we went back to live training and development. And, our programs really encourage a growth mindset. I think it's more than just the information we're sharing. I think we're able to create a new environment for these teams to really, really thrive in. We use a buddy system to help with that accountability. We have a lot of interactivity that is embedded both into the fundamentals program and into the workshops that we offer. So that's actually been something that's been wonderful to see, especially over the last year, where there's been some really good team building outcomes as well as just core information being digested. I think it creates a healthier environment where people are more prepared to say, I don't know something, and now
Mhm.
know who to go to get that question answered. So yeah, the team building side of it has been really wonderful to see.
So I've heard you say, and I love this concept, we need to meet people where they are. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, this is about having a range of training tools. We want to have something for everyone on a team. And you mentioned this early on about some people being put into a role and maybe they're actually from, slightly outside of EV. So we'll offer something right from that level through to something that's actually way more advanced. And the intro to EV module is really narrative based. So if no one has ever heard of EV, they can go through this module and work with a mentor to get all questions answered. It's a really, really nice sort of just starting point. Then we have our fundamentals program, which is comprised of 10 modules, 3 workshops, and we dial into the experience of the team. So you can actually
Mhm.
have some less experienced people and some very, very advanced people, but the facilitation is such that we will manage that in the room, especially in the discussion groups that happen. And the buddy system, you can play with the less experienced and more experienced people as well. So that's really interesting. We then have our more advanced workshops that can be tailored very much with program data to give that real world experience, working either with live data or past data to really bring sort of programs to life, so people can feel what it's like to work with that data. And then we have what we call, or what I suppose I like to think of as kind of pop-up or more time-sensitive training that could support an upcoming IBR. We have these IBR flashcards to help people be ready for
Mhm.
an IBR, or we can provide mentoring around a very, very specific challenge. So, yeah, so you'll just hear from that. We have something from people who know nothing to very, very advanced people that just need a refresher, or something's come up in a program that they've actually not had to work on that particular facet of the program before, and
Mhm.
we can help them with that too. So, yeah, so that's sort of what we mean by meeting people where they are.
So again, I love that concept. So really what we're seeing here is, just a lot of real world context, not just theory, right?
Yeah, it is a lot of real world stuff. And though, what's interesting is that because we have these sort of program agnostic training or modules, if you will, you can pull cohorts in that are individuals from lots of different programs as well, which is interesting. And then we'll talk about the programs, depending on confidentiality, in the discussion segments. So it's very real world, but we try and make the
Mhm.
core material very agnostic. So again, we can have lots of individuals within an organization, and we make it fun as well when we do it that way. And we have people occupy different roles. We might have a cam play a PM, and we might have someone surveillance play a cam. So there's this true sort of holistic understanding of one, the system, but also maybe the pressures that some roles go through, depending where you are in the cadence. So yes, so fun, but truly real world relevant as well.
So what about certification in this?
Yes, we can do a certification. That really involves measurement. So again, trying to make this a very, very safe environment, we will have a knowledge evaluation at the beginning of an assignment. And we make sure that it's okay for people to essentially tick the box that says, I don't know this yet. That's really, really critical for us, that we know what you know and what you don't know. It helps us manage the facilitation and again dial things in where it needs to be, where the training needs to be based on who's in the room. So yes, so it starts with the knowledge evaluation, and then we'll end with a closing quiz, and then from that we
Mhm.
can issue certificates based on people actually showing up and actually doing the work, which is obviously really, really important. So I have a question for you, which is
Mhm.
about, how this practical training actually, changes team performance on the job. I know I see it in the room, but I don't then get to see it, on a program. So what have you seen are some of the, upskilling and differences?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think it's pretty evident. Team leads are investing in training because if teams don't build real capability, cost and schedule risks compound. I mean, that's it, pure and simple. So we've seen measurable difference within just reporting cycles. So better readiness heading into IBRs, programs with cleaner baselines, stronger variance analysis reports or VARs, and just simply more meaningful forecasts. So programs that are investing in the fundamentals and in that training spend less time firefighting and behaving in a reactive way and more time managing in a really proactive way. So our job is to make training reflexive, I think. When things get tough, teams, know what good looks like and they inherently come back to it. When a CAM can explain their EAC with confidence, it's not just training ROI. It's really mission assurance.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how you mention, knowing what's good. In a lot of the modules, we have these somewhat sort of heat map charts about,
Mhm.
where are our weaknesses, where are our strengths, at what point are we really again going into that whole idea about performance driven compliance. How do we get stronger? So, and you need to know what that looks like. I might think I'm great at something until someone actually shows me this continuum of where a certain task ought to be, or where I ought to be.
Right.
So yeah, so it's interesting you say that. Yeah, that's really great to hear. Um, so I know that we can show clients lots of different training paths based on what's needed, but what would be the first step?
Honestly, contacting me. You can find all of our podcasts and our contact information on our website, goaztech.com.
That sounds fab. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Candace.